Hi! Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be discussing the next 5 chapters of Dragons of Spring Dawning, which will be chapters 6 through 1, and that's one of section 2 of book 3, if that makes sense. If you read it, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I have quite a bit to talk about, so I'm just going to have us jump right in with today's class. And as always, we're going to start off with our recap. And quite a lot happens in these chapters. We've got quite a lot of things developing. And again, just like the last 5 chapters, we've kind of ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. Not totally a cliffhanger, but a very intense scene where we know things are not as they appear to our characters and are wondering what's going to happen. So, alright, we are back with Laurana's group in all 5 of these chapters. We see Tass saw Raslin on the steps, but nobody believed him. That's how we start off. Of course, nobody believes Tass, unfortunately, but we'll get to that later today. Tass and Flint try to approach the Tower of High Sorcery in the center of town, though they are unsuccessful. Laurana is told the story behind the Tower of High Sorcery and the curse that was placed upon it. Laurana is then appointed as the leader of all the knights by Lord Gunther. Gilthanas and Silvara show up with the good silver, bronze, and gold dragons in order to help them fight against the evil dragons. So now they can actually fight in the sky. And then we actually see that Laurana is starting to win. She's really leading the troops, causing them to have victories. And then we even see the first battle with the good dragons and the lances, and they are victorious in that battle. Tass, during that battle, actually captures the rider of the dragon that they were fighting, who we find out is the knight that had fought against them in the previous book, where Strum died at the tower, and he's the one that delivered the bodies that were brought up to the gates. And then we have Laurana gets a letter from Kitiara through Tass from a Draconian saying that Tanis is badly wounded, dying, and is asking to see her. So they're gonna exchange Tanis for the soldier that they captured. I can't remember his name. It starts with a B. I should probably look that up, shouldn't I? But that's okay. We don't care about him anyway. So those are the main things that happened in these 5 chapters, which when we say it like that, it doesn't seem like that much happened. Compared to when you're reading it, you're like, a lot of crap's happening. Yeah, we're in the second section of the first book, of the 3rd book now. So we're making good progress through this book. How are you guys enjoying it? Comment down below if you'd like to share how your thoughts, feelings on it, if you've read it before, if you haven't read it before, how you're feeling about it now that you're reading it. Yes, good, no, we think we're gonna win, we don't think we're gonna win, where do you think we're leading, that kind of stuff. I'd love to hear about your thoughts, concerns, your questions, your theories, whatever you'd like to discuss. I would love to discuss it down below. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to talk about in this section, it's kind of a question, kind of an answer for what we get out of it, but we have 2 big examples in this story during these 5 chapters that the good guys believe that the evil side that is under the Queen of Darkness, who wants to destroy everything good in the world, should be honest, faithful, and keep their word. Does anybody else wonder why anybody would just take their word at face value and decide that they're not trying to pull a trick, they're not gonna be dishonest, they're not going to not break their word. I mean, these are the people who do not stick by morals. They're the ones where you're like, they have no morals and that's why we need to defeat them. So, why would anybody trust the word of the enemy? Why? Does anybody else have this question in their brain, like, who is stupid enough to trust this? We have 2 examples of it. 2! So, the first one is the one where Silvara and Gilthanas talk about their trip to see if they can get the dragon eggs back. Why would the good dragons trust the bad dragons not to do anything with their eggs? I don't understand. It shouldn't be a surprise that they're turning their good dragon eggs into draconians. First of all, where else do they think draconians came from? Second of all, how would you trust the evil people who would totally do something like this to not hurt your dragon eggs just because you had an agreement? I don't understand why. On this note, it's a little bit of a side note, but I also don't get in this part how they leave, and I know that they almost get captured or whatever, but why did they leave without trying to get the dragon eggs back, the ones that haven't been destroyed, since they know that they're being destroyed? Did anyone else have that question either? But yeah, back to the main point. Why would you trust that they were gonna leave your eggs alone? These are the enemy that, you know, has no morals and wants to kill everything and is gonna do anything to win. So that includes going back on their word and destroying your eggs and your young. Just saying, it doesn't seem like the smartest thing to decide that they're gonna be honest and keep their word. Really doesn't. I would have looked for proof a lot sooner than that, or find some way to bind them so they have to keep their word or something, because obviously evil does not care. They don't care, they just want what they want. The second one is more because we, as the audience, know more information, but at the same time I feel like this is still valid, is the note from Kitiara to Laurana. Yes, I know that Laurana believes that Kit does have Tanis with her, because at the time that she talked to her the first time, he was with her and she could tell she was being honest. But why would you trust the enemy to not lead you into a trap by telling you your greatest weakness? Let's be honest. Kitiara knows that Laurana's biggest weakness is Tanis. So not only does she not have Tanis, though Laurana doesn't know that, but even if she did, she's evil. Why would you think that she's being honest in her motivations? You are winning. Laurana's winning. So of course Kit is going to pull out the big guns in order to squash her and make it so that way her army doesn't have a leader anymore. So that way she can just run in and destroy everything. So why would you not take a moment to think and be like, hey, how do I know she's being honest and truthful about this? And at least in some aspect, expect it to be a trap. Just like, I mean, Flint and Tass do honestly believe it could be a trap, and they aren't even sure that Tanis is with Kitiara, which he's not, and they don't totally know everything that happened between Laurana and Kitiara. But even if Kitiara did say that Tanis was with her, and yes, that was true, but on Laurana's point, shouldn't she question it? Shouldn't she know that, hey, Kitiara knows that Tanis is my weakness, so maybe I should have some reservations? I should demand some kind of proof? Something? I mean, really? Really, how could you expect Kitiara to be honest? Let's get real. So, this really has two things to it about this whole good trusting evil. And the first thing is that, especially when it comes to the Laurana and Kitsiara's situation is it provides tension, because us as the audience, we know more than Laurana does, and that is something that the author is using, is by giving us more information and the characters less information. So we know it's going to be a trap, because we know that Kitsiara doesn't have Tanis anymore. We know that he's going down the whirlpool, and even though Kitsiara did fly after him and get stuck in that whirlpool, like was able to fight through the storm, she did not capture them. She ended up getting blown away in the end. So we know that Kitsiara does not have Tanis unless she went to the bottom of that whirlpool and dug out his dead body or something. Like, let's be real. Especially since she said that the battle he was injured in was a battle he wasn't at all. So we know it's going to be some kind of trap. We know that she just wants to get Laurana out because she's winning, and they do not want her to be winning. So it gives us the tension to know that Laurana is going to go into this situation and be trusting, and she really shouldn't be, because Tass and Flint are right, it is going to be a trap. The second thing that we see from both portions is that good has its flaws. We see the flaw of our good heroes. Heroes are the people that are honest, people who do have morals, the people who would keep their word, the people who would be faithful, the people who would make the right choice, and if they say this is what they're going to do, then that's what they're going to do. And so we see that weakness by the good side believing that the bad side has the same properties when they don't. I don't know why the good side would believe that the bad side, who is everything that you stand against, would have these same values, but we see that good has its own flaws, that no matter how much we admire them and no matter how much we look up to them, to these heroes and these people who are fighting for justice, they're still human and they still have human flaws. And it's just like, you know, a parent who's had their child taken hostage and they instantly pay the money, even though that doesn't mean that they're going to give back their child. They might still kill their child anyway, just to get the money. So we see the difficulties of how do you trust somebody who is untrustworthy, and whether they deserve that ability to be trusted. There are some enemies that have a code of honor, and they would definitely stick by what they say. But we know that these are not those kind of people. This is not this kind of criminal or these kind of evils. We're right, the Queen of Darkness, the one that wants to destroy everything. And so I feel like the good side should have a little bit more smarts. There we go. Should have a little bit more smarts to know that they should be a little bit more untrusting of the evil side. So we do see the flaws in the good side, and the authors really want you to see that yes, they do have their own flaws, and this is going to provide extra conflict. This battle is going to make it even harder for the good side to win, because we didn't have the good dragons for so long, and now we are going to have Laurana going into a trap and very possibly be captured, taking away our one good general who knows what they're doing, who can really win this fight. Alright, so the next thing I want to talk about is that we finally are getting some hope in this story. We're finally seeing the light, as some might say. But we now have the good dragons on our side, or their side. We're not actually in the book, but it's like our side, pretty much our side. We are winning some of the battles. So the tide is slowly turning to where now the good side is actually winning the battles. And it's not just winning by the skin of their teeth. They actually have a decent chance of winning and are winning and pushing the army back. Completely on their own. Like, get out of here, we don't need you. So we are uncertain still about Tanis and the people on the boat, since we've cut away from them and we still haven't heard back from them. We don't know exactly what's going on. So we might or might not have lost Tanis and our other friends, but at least we are seeing that there is hope and they are getting somewhere. It's not just the enemy completely destroying Lorana and Flint and Tass. And we see that even though there is some still up in the air, we are getting a chance to fight back, and we are getting a chance to be stronger and getting it together. So the whole point of me bringing this up is for us to realize how boring of a story it would be if we had absolutely no chance of winning. And we kind of had that point where it looked like that was going to be where we were going at the very end of book 2. We did win in the end of book 2. There was, by pure luck of the dragon orb and how it worked and what it did for the army, it did show that we can fight back. But we lost that whole tower and that dragon orb. And one sec. Pardon me. So we did do that stuff with the dragon orb and killing the dragons, but we lost basically everything. That tower destroyed itself with the dragon that was caught in it. So it wasn't like a foolproof plan for us to continue forward. So now we actually see in this book at this time that we actually do have the tools now to win. And that is bringing our hope alive, it's bringing the characters' hope alive, and it's making it so it's like, oh, well, not everything just sucks, and it's not that evil's just gonna wipe us all out. It doesn't mean that the end of this book is gonna be a happy one. We did, in my analysis of the book covers and the symbolism of what dawn means, is that it seems like there is a new day, the new world is coming, but I didn't mention that we were for sure going to be winning or not. I just said it was going to be a new world, a new something. Whether it's evil wins and that's going to be the good people trying to pick up the pieces of their lives and trying to live under this rule, or they're going to win and have a new world that's going to be free of evil, it's still up in the air. But at least we know that there's a fighting chance, and it gives us a reason to keep reading. We see that there is a chance, because as a reader, we want good to win. We don't want it to be a sad story where everybody dies or evil takes over and there's no chance of victory. So we are now seeing the authors keeping our hopes alive, because we've had all this crap with Strum and Strum's death and how hard that's hit us, and Lorana then, yes, saying that she's going to have to step up and try and win this thing. But we see that she's distraught over Tanis, because Tanis might be lost. And we see that Raslin has doomed everyone to die on this ship. And at this point, we don't know if they survive. So half of our friends, half the people that we have followed through books 1 and book 2 might be dead at this point. So the authors really had to bring up these good dragons to bring it so we can have some victories and some good points to keep us reading and to keep us going, instead of just feeling like we're lost and doomed and there's no hope. Alright, let me just get a drink. Okay, let's keep going with our class. The next topic is another pretty big topic I want to discuss. And some of you might agree with me, might not agree with me, and that's okay. And I'm welcome to hear any of your comments down below. As always, any comments, questions, or concerns, I would love to have a conversation with you about it. But this, I know it's going to be kind of controversial because it deals with Tass, and I feel like either you love Tass or you find him really annoying. But this might be a valid question even to those who think he is annoying. I find, especially when I read the very beginning of the chapter 6 that we started with. Come on, Amy, get it together. Chapter 6. We start with, I tell you it was Raslin. And I tell you one more of your furry elephant teleporting ring plant living off air stories, and I'll twist that hoop peck around your neck, Flint snarled angrily. He actually did see Raslin, And there are several times that I have thought that Tass is so not, like, he's not always on the money. He's not always, everything he has to say is not necessarily relevant and that you want to hear. But there are several times that he makes comments or says things and nobody believes him. So my question is, how different would the story turn out if people actually believe Tass when he says things that actually are correct and are true? Like the fact that Razlan is dying on those steps. Tass, I feel like, is a very underappreciated, underestimated characters. Tass actually knows what he's talking about a good 70 to 80% of the time. He just likes to say a lot of things that nobody cares about, which makes it so no one wants to listen to him. But if they actually listened to him and actually believed him, just think of how many times things would be easier or things would be different. For example, this Razlan dying on the steps. Think of this. What if he said Razlan's dying on those steps, and they went to and believed him, and they went to the library, and they saw that Razlan actually was there, and they talked to Razlan. What if that meant that they would know that Kitiara does not have Tanis because Tanis is dying in this whirlpool? Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that would be much more of a comfort, but then they would know for certain that Kitiara's message was a lie when it came to them. She would try to tempt them with Tanis's thing, and they'd be like, nope, that's a trap, we're not doing that. So Laurana would actually know that Tanis is no longer with Kit. She might know that, yes, he was with her, but he isn't in the dragon army and isn't an evil person, and though he did lie and lost a lot of trust in his friends, he did not convert over to the evil side, and he's not actually with her right now. How much would that change the story? It would change it a heck of a lot. It could mean possibilities are way, way different if they actually trusted in things that Tass said. Not saying that they should trust everything that Tass says, because as we all know, Tass has a lot of things that you're just like, we don't care. We don't even want to listen to you. Go away. It's not the time. But Tass actually says a lot of things that is really, really important. And this is another flaw, another fault that the authors have given our characters in order to cause more obstacles and more difficulties for our characters. Otherwise, things could be a lot easier, and it makes me really sad that Tass is like shooed away and you're just like, but he's telling the truth, why can't you see? I have my list right here, my trusty dusty notes, of all the good things that Tass has done and all the important things that he has helped with in this story so far. Let's go ahead and review them. And I don't even think I have all of them written down because I wrote down the big ones. I think there are several times when I haven't thought, like I've kind of forgotten them by now that we've gotten through them. But let's take a look at this list. Okay. Tass learns the secrets of the good dragons. Obviously his memory is erased at first for it, but Fizban does trust him with that knowledge, and he knows when he sees that painting what it means. He discovers the existence of the dragon arms when he's reading that text in, is it all the way back in Flotsam? Was that where it was at? Where we meet Derek? I'm pretty sure that was Flotsam. He breaks a dragon orb. After, we've discovered dragon orbs, they found dragon orb, and he breaks the dragon orb in order to save people from themselves. He discovers a new one. He reads how to use the dragon orb with those glasses. He lets Laurana know this is how it needs to be used. He captures a dragon rider in these last 5 chapters, and he observes many things that actually help out the companions in the end. But 99% of the time, they don't trust him until after it's staring them in the face. Like, he'll say something and they'll be like, oh, forget it, Tass, like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then it turns back around and they're like, oh yeah, you were right, Tass. Maybe we shouldn't have trusted you to begin with, because otherwise we wouldn't have had to go through all these hoops just to find out the same answer. It really would be a very different story if Tass was actually taken seriously and not taken as a hindrance. They love Tass and they always keep him with them, and it's not like they don't really want him there, but at the same time, Flint's always supposed to be keeping an eye on him, which I do admit, like, yeah, he does go running off and going around, but a lot of times him running off makes things move along, makes him discover new things that you wouldn't otherwise know. That could be very, very helpful. Like finding that dragon orb and figuring out how to use that tower for the fight at the tower that ends up what wins the day is Laurana being able to use this dragon orb that wouldn't have even been found if not for Tass doing things that he technically shouldn't be doing. So yes, I do know that Tass is annoying and sometimes you're just like, come on Tass, this is not the time. But he is very, very smart, and he actually does do a lot of credible work that he is not given the acknowledgement for, and it's very, very sad. So I just want you to think of how much he's done, how much of that effort he needed to go to make people believe him, and if they did believe him more, how of a different story this could be, how much that could be avoided, and how many things could have been worked around if they had just believed Tass in the beginning, or at least checked it out instead of just tossing him aside. Even with the note, Laurana almost didn't get the note from about Tanis, because Tass is up here saying, hey, I was given this, it's really important, and everyone's like, oh, is it really? And it had to be, no, really, it is important, and him, you know, getting Flint and being very persuasive to be like, hey, actually take this seriously, this is important, instead of just shooing them away like they normally would. So for all of you Tass lovers like me, give me a thumbs up for a Tass is amazing point. If you're not a big Tass fan, what do you think of what I've said right now? Do you feel like actually the story would be different, or are you glad that they're always like, get out of here, Tass, and you wish that we could just cut Tass from the story altogether? What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? How do you feel about that in general? Leave a comments down below. I would love to discuss it with you. Okay, the next thing I'd like to discuss is the point of view in these chapters. These 5 chapters have 2 sections that I feel like are really interesting with how they chose to do the point of view. The first time that we have a very kind of unique point of view is the story of Gilthanas and Silvara going to, I don't remember exactly where it was. Was it? Gosh darn. I didn't write it down. I should have written it down. But their journey to go see if they can steal back the eggs, the good eggs, that way they could fight, and discovering that really they're being corrupted into draconians. We see it from Asinus's writings in his book, as if we're reading what he wrote versus actually experiencing the conversation. It really makes it more emotionless, more kind of cold, calculating these are the facts, and we don't get any thoughts or feelings or anything from the characters who are telling the story, namely Gilthanas and Silvara, and we don't get any thoughts or feelings from Laurana or Asinus, who is being told this story. So it's kind of a weird distance the way this point of view is on this particular story. And then the other time was during the serious dragon battle, the very first battle by dragons with the good dragons battling the bad dragons. We get this very important, monumentous moment, and it's from the point of view of Tass and Flint, mostly Tass, a little bit of the dragon as well, but we get it in this most comedic character in the lot. And so I'm wondering why it's kind of interesting that we have it from their point of view and not the point of view of Laurana, not the point of view of, you know, the dragon mainly, like one of the main dragons, like Laurana's dragon, or even the dragon that they're riding. You're not getting a more serious point of view, or even a point of view from, you know, one of the people, important people, the generals or whatever else in the town watching the battle. It's very interesting that they chose to do it from Tass and Flint's point of view. So I don't know if I totally have answers as to why, especially since I'm not the authors. I can't know if what I'm saying is actually what they were doing or not. But I was wondering if we can maybe have a little bit of a conversation about that. About why do you think we have these point of views for these sections? I'm going to give my opinion, but I would really love to hear your opinion and what you feel like you get out of that particular point of view. For Gilthanas' story and Silvara's story, from the point of view that they've got, I think the reason they chose this point of view was to purposely distance the audience from the story, to purposefully not give all the details of the thoughts and feelings of the characters. I think it's such a horrific story for the characters involved that the authors were like, we want these to be facts. We don't want it to get so bogged down in the thoughts and feelings of our characters that we're going to distance it and make it so we can get through the story. So we can get through the portions of what actually happened without all the depression and the seriousness of the situation. So that way the audience doesn't have to be dragged down through Gilthanas and Silvara's nightmares. Though, I do think it would be interesting to hear from Laurana's point of view, especially since at this point we really see Laurana and Tanis mirroring each other in their thoughts and feelings and their point. They're both the leaders now. We've got both of them as the main leaders of each group. So to see Laurana, who we mostly have nowadays for Laurana's group, as her point of view, what she would be feeling and thinking being told this story, I do think would have been interesting to know. I don't know why they chose to have it be from Sinis's point of view versus Laurana's point of view. I'm not sure. Or Sinis's writings versus Laurana's point of view. As for the seriousness of the battle, from being Tass's point of view, I think it's because one of the main things happens with Tass, which is him capturing that rider. And also to try and give some levity. We've got all this serious stuff happening. We've got the seriousness of the story from Gilthanas and Silvara. We've got the seriousness of battle in general. We are giving this hope. And part of the hope is the levity of Tass and Flint. Plus, Tass is just great, so why not? I mean, seriously, who else can give you the excitement and the enjoyment of riding a dragon while in battle? If it's not Tass. I mean, Laurana is not going to have the same point of view. She's going to be very serious, very focused. We're not going to enjoy the flight on a dragon. We're going to be focused on the battle. Flint does have a little bit of his point of view in there, but we actually don't see tons of it, especially during the battle when he's frozen. We don't know exactly why he was frozen, whether it was from fear, whether it was from, you know, it did say that he said that it was the wrong side. He did say that the lance did hurt him. We're not sure exactly why Flint was the way he was during the battle, but if we did see him from his point of view, it wouldn't have been so dynamic. It wouldn't have been so enjoyable. He would have been he already said that dragons were one of the things he was going to stay away from, and after he got off he was like, I'm never riding one of those again. So it wouldn't be the same experience, the same fun and joy and exhilaration of riding a dragon for the first time in these stories. So what do you think? What would you have liked or preferred? Do you think the authors did it for a different reason, for the same reason? What do you think? I'd love to have a conversation with you. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Put them down below. Alright, so now we're on to the nitty gritty. And the first thing I'd like to discuss, the first pinpointed thing, is why do you think that we take the time, or that the author takes the time, to tell us the story of the High Tower, the Tower of High Sorcery in Palanthas? Why do we stop and basically be forced upon, because even Laurana says, oh, we don't have time for this, let's not worry about it. Why do we stop and take this moment to have this background story of the High Towers being cursed? And I really want us to focus on, especially for the next couple of chapters, seeing where this will take us. Let me get there. For me, it's page 79. There is this quote, the most important quote, I feel like, of the whole story. Let's see. It's the black-robed guy is on the top of the tower, and he shouts, "The gates will remain closed and the halls empty until the day comes when the master of both the past and the present returns with power." Then the evil mage leaped out, hurling himself down upon the gates. What do we think of that quote? That quote is exceptionally powerful, especially since he jumps off and dies right after he says it. But also because who can be a master of a past and the present, just like they're confused in the story? How can that be? Who do you think is going to be that master? Do you think anyone's going to be that master? Do you think it even matters at this point? Why do we take the time to say, specifically out of everybody's way, to tell this story of the Tower of High Sorcery? I always want to say high first, High Tower, but it's Tower of High Sorcery. I want to know your thoughts, opinions, and I want you to keep that in mind as we go forward. That's what I want you to really be thinking, that in the back of your mind, this quote and this thing, to see if we have any importance that comes from it. Because usually we all say, oh hey, the author must have included it because it's important. But it could be important just for world building, because that is a world building moment. We see more of the history of this world and see what its past is. It could be important just, to give us something to cling to. It could be a red herring where we think this is going to be something and ends up turning into nothing. I don't know, but it is very interesting, and I think we should keep it in mind as we continue forward through the books. Let me know what you think of that scene and that story. I think it is pretty creepy, but I do really like Laurana's thoughts and feelings on it, how she really likes the view of the city and actually feels like the tower feels right to be there. And I think part of the reason that I pick up on that is because Astinus also picks up on that and has like this approving gleam, I guess you could say, to him. It actually looks like he is glad that she says that and that she's the smart one of this group versus everybody else who wishes it would just go away. Okay, the next nitty-gritty item I've got is, do you think Astinus actually meant that Tanis is lost, or if Laurana just interpreted it that way? Do you think he's like speaking in his riddles that she's trying to interpret because he won't just give a straight answer? Do you think that he actually meant to say that Tanis is lost? And if he did mean to say that Tanis is lost, and that's not just Laurana's interpretation, do we think he is lost as in emotionally, like we've been talking about before, or does he actually mean that he is dead? Because at this point, all we know is he's been swirling around this whirlpool, and we don't know if he even survives it. So maybe he means that he's lost, meaning he's never coming back. What do you think of Astinus's remark? I didn't write it down because I didn't think of it until now that we're talking here. But maybe I can see if we can find out exactly what he said. Let's see if I can find it quickly. I've gone too far. Let's see. He says, I do not predict, I think this is the portion, I do not predict the future. I see only the present as it becomes the past. Thus I have seen it since time began. I have seen love that, through its willingness to sacrifice everything, brought hope to the world. I have seen love that tried to overcome pride and a lust for power, but failed. The world is darker for its failure, but it is only as a cloud dims the sun. The sun, the love, still remains. Finally, I have seen love lost in darkness, love misplaced, misunderstood, because the lover did not know his or her own heart. I don't even know for sure if he's even talking about Tanis at this point. He's talking about a couple different loves. Obviously, Tanis does have two different loves he's fighting between. But he talks about love in general. And I almost wonder if he's talking about Laurana at this point. Because she is so lost in the love of Tanis that she can't even focus on what's in front of her. And she's lost focus because she wonders if he's with her and if he actually is gone over to the dark side for Kitiara and all this other stuff. And I almost wonder if she doesn't understand her own heart, if that's what he's trying to say, and not talking about Tanis really at all. I don't know. What do you think? Because he doesn't even mention Tanis in that whole thing. He's just talking about love and things that he has seen. It's very complicated, and yes, he does speak in riddles, just as she says, and he's not very straightforward about it. So what do you think? And do you think her conclusion is the right one, or do you think it's at least the conclusion that is right maybe for her at the time to be able to focus on what she's doing? What do you think? I'd love to know down below. Okay, we're getting close to the end, guys. We're getting close to the end of this class. Alright, second to last item. We only hear of Elhana's progress with the elves in a short little blurb from Laurana, when it was such a focus at the end of the last book, and yet we don't even meet Elhana in this beginning of this book, and she's already done quite a few things. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that in general? Do you think it's kind of weird that through this whole time, by the end, we didn't see we didn't see Elhana much in book 2, but we did see her during her portion, and then we saw her at the end with this resolve along with Laurana. And then we get to this book 3, and they don't actually cut to her, they don't actually show her progress or anything like that. It's just a mention, a little blurb that we get about her, and that she is making a difference and fighting, and that she might be possibly marrying Laurana's brother. What do we think about that? I mean, I know that the author can't fit in everything, and it might not be as important as we think, but I almost wonder if it's kind of a missed opportunity, because we had so much of Elhana, and we finally saw her resolve, and we finally saw that she's going to take action, and then we didn't really get to see any of that action. We just heard about it from somebody who hasn't even seen it. They've just heard about it themselves. So I do feel kind of like it's a little bit of a letdown, a little bit of a we could have been worthy of a little bit more than that. But what do you think? How do you feel about it? Maybe you're fine with it. Maybe you don't really care what Alhana's doing. Maybe you didn't feel the same kind of connection there at the end as I did. So let me know. And just keep in mind that Alhana has actually done these things, and we actually do see progress on her front as well as we continue going through this book. And then last, and certainly not least, I'd like us to keep in mind and just have the thought in our head that we have several characters now who seem to know more than we do and are not willing to say anything about it, not willing to be upfront and to tell us what we need to be told. I find that very interesting. I mean, obviously we had these characters before. I'm just bringing it up now just because the thought occurred to me as I was reading this set of chapters, especially with Astinus, and how he behaved at the end of the last 5 chapters we read, and then how he's acting with how he talks to Laurana and how he seems to know things that we don't. So there's 4 people that I feel like we've got this connection to. It's Fizbin. Obviously, even said that he used the dragon orb in order to look into the future. So he definitely knows more than we do, and he's not being honest and just saying out for this is what's got to be done, this is what the future holds, this is what we got to do. No, he's being very close to the vest about it. Astinus, who we've just met, and like I said, he was the one that made me think of it, is we can tell he knows something. We can tell he knows a lot of things, especially about the past. But we don't know what it is that he knows, and we know that he has some thoughts about Razlan that we don't know about, and Razlan was anxious to know what he thought, but we don't know. It's very interesting that he wouldn't outright tell people, just like he is with Laurana speaking in riddles. At times, Razlan is somebody who knows more than we do. Sometimes he just says things and you're like, he must know something. And even at times, Razlan doesn't even know what he knows. He just says things that he doesn't even know why he said it. He just knows that it's true. So I find that very interesting. Again, it's not totally a full character that knows things that we don't, but at times it really feels like he does. And then the voice that Razlan has in his head at times seems to know more than we're letting on, but he only addresses Razlan in times when Razlan's in need, and doesn't actually be upfront about anything either. It just says, hey, do this, and then it goes away and doesn't come back. So it's very interesting that we have these characters, these players that actually know what's happening, what's going on. Oops, sorry, I'm moving my camera around because I was shifting. So we have these characters that know things, that know what is going to happen, and they're not being upfront with the characters who are the major players here. And obviously would be kind of a bad story if we were just like, oh hey, like, do this and we'll win, and they did it and they won. That mystery would be taken away and we would probably be like, whatever, that sucked. But it is interesting that you think if they're really fighting this war, that shouldn't they be telling these characters what they need to know, giving them a little bit more, giving them anything? And keeping in mind, we don't know what Fizbin's doing right now. I just thought about that as we're talking. Right now, I'm like, where is Fizbin? I know that he and Tass were there for that meeting where Tass breaks the dragon orb, but then he goes with Laurana to visit the knights to clear Strum, and we don't know what Fizbin's been doing since then. Interesting. We'll have to see if he comes back. But just keep in mind that we've got these players that know what's going on and are not telling us, so we're going to have to keep an extra eye on those characters, because what they're doing is even more important than what our regular characters who are just trying to survive and doing the best that they can. Those are the characters that are the wild cards, and they're the characters that are really going to show us kind of the way, that are really going to point us in the direction of things that need to be done. Alright, so the next class, hopefully we will have learned more about Tanis and their group, see if they're alive, see if they're dead, see what happened. We don't know at this point. See what's going on with them. We're gonna have to see what's going on with Laurana and this trap that Kitsiara that we know is a trap. is going to be set up unless she did somehow capture Tannis, but we already know the dragon ended up not being able to handle the maelstrom, so it's very unlikely that she ended up capturing Tannis at all. And either way, even if she did, it would still be a trap. We both all know it. We're going to see what's happening with Razlan, if he did die on Stennis' floor, or if he managed to survive whatever was happening to him right then. And yeah, so we've got quite a bit that will be happening in the next several chapters. The next chapters for us to read is chapters 2 through 6. Sorry, it took me a second there to say what I needed to say. Right? Yeah, 6. And I'm just trying to look up what my page number is. I keep thinking I need to write down the page number for myself, and then I keep forgetting. So I'm not always juggling the book. Alright, so for me and my copy, it's pages 133 to 191. I hope that you're enjoying the book. I hope that you are anxious to see what happens. I hope everything is going well for you and that you enjoyed this class. Again, I always would love to hear from you either down below in the comments, or I do have a Twitter that's at fantasyfiction1. So I'd love to hear any discussions on there. I do post when I upload a new video on Twitter if you want to follow me. I also post throughout the week different fantasy-based questions or observations, or postings from authors of fantasy fiction or urban fantasy on there if I find really cool blurbs or cool updates or anything else. So if you love to follow me on there and find some of that out, I would love to see you on there as well. Thanks for sticking around for this class, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!